Hey, welcome back. I thought we could do a catch-up garden walk and tour. It has been a while. May has been so busy. June is slowing down a little bit, just with planting up the flower farm and working on irrigation and all of those other things. But I thought I would get on here and show you a quick update of what's going on and blooming in the garden. So I did this last month and I thought it was really enjoyable to sort of have a documented, and I really enjoyed documenting what was blooming at that time of year. So it's the same idea for this video. We're just going to touch on some of the highlights of the garden and I will show you what's doing well. Okay, so I thought I would start here because I'm really enjoying the Nepeta over here. This is Walker's Low Nepeta. We planted this last year. It had sort of self-seeded in another area and I planted little tiny plants and now you can see they are almost like shrubs. They are doing so well. We also did this rock wall and I added the sedum and the creeping thyme and it's doing well too amidst the weeds, but I think otherwise it's doing pretty good, very happy with it. And then I planted the Dutch iris in between last fall. It is just so beautiful. I really love these blooms. And then behind we have a speedwell that's not quite yet blooming, some upright junipers, and the barberries are putting on their color and they just look so pretty. Nice pop of color. Spanning over here, we'll pop inside the greenhouse because I do have some things growing in there. I've been loving using that so far. We're just working on some gravel in this area. And then this area I irrigated, but it's not quite done. But yeah, everything's filling in. There's some yarrow and feverfew and nepeta. And then I put some foxglove and rudbeckia at the front here because it's a little bit empty. Everything here I would say is doing pretty good as well. Nothing really much for blooms besides actually, yes, there are blooms. Here is some more Dutch iris and then the nepeta's in bloom. The heuchera is also blooming. This one and this one. But all the trees seem to be doing good. It was a mild winter and they took to transplanting very well. We planted this garden last year. Okay, and then moving on, we'll take a walk into the greenhouse. The beds that I planted outside of here are also doing really well. I think it's because of the heat. So this is a Gara here, and look at all the stems on there. So many. And then a pink nepeta at the back. The alyssum is just coming out of the container, which is great. Same with the ivy. I really like that. It softens the edges of the bed. And then the rose finished its blooms, but it might bloom again. We will see. Actually, yeah, there's some buds on it, so it might be more of a repeat bloomer. I don't have a lot of experience with that one. And then I also added some foxglove into this bed as well. Same story on this side, same plants. This one just doesn't seem as prolific. Well, the alyssum does, but the Gara doesn't look as big as the other one, but that's fine. I haven't noticed that much deer browse on these roses, so I'm very happy about that, because that's why I did have these cages to kind of protect them as they were growing up and over the greenhouse windows. Okay, moving on inside. I've been keeping the door propped open just because it's getting so hot inside of here, obviously. So we did finish the back wall, well, started to finish. So this was sort of my dream of what it would look like, more of like the French country look. Really happy with that. We do have the two wax sealed, what are they called? Wax sealed openers. As it gets hot, the wax melts and the windows open, which is nice. I've got some eucalyptus here, silver dollar right there. I think this is baby blue. There was no label when I bought it. And then this is one I can't pronounce, but really like that one. Oh, it's eucalyptus sticks. Anyway, really happy to have them in here because I think with the heat, they will put on a lot more growth than I usually have. And in the center here, I did geraniums because apparently they can handle the extra heat. All different kinds of colors. Can't wait to show you their blooms once they bloom. This one got a little fried yesterday. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll put it back a little bit. But we do want to put a shade cloth in here as well because it is getting to be quite hot in here, even with the automated openers and the doors open. It gets quite hot in here, which is pretty typical for a greenhouse. And then we've got a bunch of tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers all growing in here. The growth that they have put on in here is just crazy. They are just loving the heat. You can see I just put a temporary stake in here because I do want to put some string lines up here and do I think it's called Florida weave method, just because it might be a little bit cleaner and tidier here in the greenhouse so they don't become mini bushes. I do have my first cucumber growing in here. Waiting to pick that one. And that's all for the greenhouse. I've been enjoying having these chairs in here too. When it's not too hot, it's really, really nice to sit in here on cooler days and just soak up the warmth. Really enjoying that. Okay, moving out of the greenhouse, we will loop around to this bed here. Okay, this is a black lace elderberry that is just starting to bloom. I really love this shrub. It's just a beautiful texture and color in the yard. And then we've got the pop of the barberries with the Karl Forster grass there. And this ornamental crab apple is just one of my favorite trees. I really, really love it. And then here, this is looking a little bit weedy. Some of these plants are really taking over, I guess in a good way, but I definitely have to thin them out a little bit. So here we've got Tetra White Feverfew, which is probably one of my favorite feverfews, but I think this front of the border is just too close. I think I need to plant it back a little bit, but that's okay. Then we've got a Colorado yarrow blooming as well, a hydrangea that's getting smothered. So definitely need to do some work in here, but I'm going to wait till these bloom so I can harvest the blooms, and then I'll be moving them around, I think. Moving on here, this hydrangea is doing well. It's all budded up. I believe this is an Annabelle hydrangea. And then we've got bishop's weed or goutweed. Again, I'm waiting for the blooms because I'm using them for bouquets, but it is just taking over this bed, which I was warned about in our area. It can be a little bit of a bully in the garden, but it's just such a pretty plant. I wanted to test it for myself because some people didn't have that experience. So I think I just need to find a different place for it where I can kind of let it go wild because it is a beautiful plant. Okay, and then moving on, another Annabelle hydrangea, and then we've got a whole sea of foxglove. I'll walk over there in a minute. Spirea, this one and that one there. I really love the pops of color that they bring. I had these in a shadier area and they didn't look as happy, so I'm really happy I moved them over. And then we have a bush clematis here that is budded up and ready to give us its glorious blooms. This is probably one of my favorites. I love it here. So nice. And then we've got some verbascum back here that we started from seed. These are from Baker Creek. I don't know if this one was Southern something, but I love the color. Southern Charm, I want to say. And then there's this one as well. Just such a pretty, pretty bloom. I don't have the heart to cut those ones. Those ones are too special to cut. Just going to leave them in the garden. And then we've got the foxglove. My daughter and I threw down a ton of seeds, hundreds of seeds, and they are all coming back. And after 2 years, they are blooming, and it is worth the wait. And then we've got the single feverfew variety, which is probably my second favorite feverfew. Just that classic sort of chamomile daisy look. Love it. And I'm noticing in here, I've got a red twig dogwood that is just getting suffocated by the feverfew. So again, once it blooms, I'm going to cut it back so this dogwood can live. And then moving around here, we were doing some work in here. We're going to add some stairs here because the grade changes quite a lot from the grass to the gravel. So we're thinking a step here would be good. And then moving into the new secret garden, I started to stain the pergola. I'm really happy with how it looks, but there's a ton of work and I chose the hottest day to do it. So I got a little bit of a suntan, an extreme suntan, if you know what I mean. But yeah, excited to have this done and tidied up. So down these stairs is where the verbascum and foxglove is. And I think it's just so beautiful right here. Isn't that just the most beautiful? Okay, turning and heading back this way. In this bed, I had some creeping buttercup that I sprayed to get rid of, so I've got to get rid of that still. Hopefully it's going to do its job. And then we've got some peonies in here that I harvested most of the blooms. Nothing really else blooming except the hardy geranium there and nepeta. I've got to fill up the bird bath. I planted up these pots with geraniums and dahlias and different things, but I think we had some irrigation difficulties, so they're not exactly thriving. And then this garden also, the first few feet of the bed was not getting irrigated, so not putting on a tremendous amount of growth, but that is fixed, so hopefully we'll see some growth now. Nothing died, thankfully. But yeah, everything's doing well there. The nepeta is blooming, and it is a beautiful nepeta. Different than my other one, so I'm really happy about that. And then I've got some pink ones here too that'll start to put on their buds and blooms too. The Shasta daisies are budded up. The grass is coming in right here, so I've got to remove that. But then I also seeded in some zinnias just to fill the space because the baby blue spruce will take quite a few years to kind of get to its width. I think about 9 feet wide, so it'll come out into the bed a little bit more. But until then, I thought I would put some annuals in there to fill up the space. Oh, we've got the geranium blooming. That looks quite beautiful. That's different than my other one. It's always nice to see some different blooms on the same plant. Everything else is doing good. Again, same story here. The feverfew took over, and I've kind of got to reclaim the space so I don't suffer any deaths of other plants. The geum is blooming, which is just stunning. The poppies are almost petering out, Icelandic poppies. Oh, look at that, beautiful. That's an Edith checker something. Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, the geum seems to be doing fine with the feverfew, but once it blooms, I'll be cutting it back because I don't even know what's in here. I've got to reclaim the space, but feverfew just takes over, which is, I guess, a good problem if you're a flower farmer. And then we've got some campanula back there, the globe campanula, that's going to bloom soon. Some yarrow. These are, I want to say honey lily Sicilian something. There's a bee in it. Really unusual flower, but really, really love it. Seems to come back every year. And then we've got a salvia back here. A dianthus. It's a mystery dianthus. It actually came in the ajuga beside it. And then it started to sprout up and bloom. And I thought, hey, that's a nice combo. So I left it there. The pear tree is doing well. It's got a little bit nibbled by the deer. I still have this big pile of mulch to move, but I have been so busy. And then we've got more of the yarrow blooming. I just love that color. And look at that. Tiny little clusters of beautiful flowers. So pretty. And then we've got this plant. I forget what it's called. I'll put the name on the screen if I can find it, but I felt like it was a prairie penstemon or something. Very, very unusual, but I really, really love it. It's the first year that it's blooming. I bought it last year, and it was just sort of stayed like a clump, almost like a foxglove. But this year it's just putting on beautiful growth, very tall. I'd say that's at least 3.5 feet, filled with blooms. Really love that plant. I've got some native catmint that's just taking over. I need to weed that out as well. Some foxglove that's blooming here too. And then this is the Honeycrisp apple. It looks like the trunk looks a little crooked. I think I'm gonna have to stake that. I really suffer with staking. It's just not my favorite task, and I pay for it later. And then we've got some asters here doing well with some of those nasty blister beetles, I think. Such a beautiful pink in the garden. Daylilies that are just going to bloom any day now. And then this is a mix of sedum and a plum that I planted a few years ago. The wind has just pushed the canopy, obviously in one direction. So I think this fall, after it's done putting on its growth, I'm gonna sort of rectify it and put it more upwards because it is definitely very, very crooked. And then another salvia blooming right now. This is a Japanese anemone that is just insane. Huge, huge. Lamb's ear, doing really, really well. I wish all my plants could grow like lamb's ear. Look at that. Then we've got a penstemon or two blooming, more of the campanula, more of the salvia that the bees are loving. Some chives thrown in here because why not? More feverfew. It is just, there's so much of it. And then we've got some columbine that reseeded from the vegetable garden, nepeta, weigela, and soapwort back there blooming. This area is sort of in progress. We moved out some of these and we switched around the vegetable garden. I'll go in there in a minute. But this area I was trying to weed because we had crazy amounts of grass seeping in. You can see on the edges there. So this is mostly a pink and yellow bed. So we've got echinacea and salvia, a yellow yarrow, but the grass was just crazy. As you can see, it came back with vengeance. So I've got to do some more damage on that. And also transplant some things. I'll go back here in a second, but here we've got a beautiful lupin and then a pink one back there. This is mostly cleaned up, but this, like I said, this area just got so weedy so fast. Now it's hard to kind of get a handle on it. I planted this area last year and I didn't know this is a margarita flower. Beautiful yellow daisy kind of look, almost ready to bloom. But I did not expect it to get this tall because you can see the pink salvia is back there, and then I've got a yellow barberry back there, and then a dappled willow shrub that gets to be 6 or 8 feet tall and wide. But you can see this margarita flower is just blocking it. So I think I'm gonna have to switch some things around here because the layers are just all off. But the lupins are fabulous. I've been enjoying those and not cutting them, just kind of keeping them in the garden because they're just so pretty. Okay, moving into the vegetable garden. We've got, oh, can't miss this. Got a beautiful climbing rose. Above and Beyond, I believe it's called. Really love this. It's starting to climb up all around the fence. This is a deer fence because we suffer with enormous deer browse, so the only way possible to grow veggies is to have a large fence. But this rose makes the fence a little bit more beautiful. And then I've got a grape on this side with some clusters. Looks like we're gonna get grapes this year. That's exciting. And then this bed, I did reclaim the front couple feet and transplant all my strawberries back in there because the raspberries have the tendency to take over. But the raspberries came back, so I guess that's not a bad problem if you like raspberries, which we will have a ton of this year. Probably my husband's favorite fruit, so happy to have a lot of that. This is I want to say Longsdale spinach that just keeps reseeding and coming back every year, which is nice if you like spinach. And then this is the veggie garden so far. We just swapped out this bed here. We had those wine barrels out in front and it just never really did what I wanted it to do. So we put this in instead, and my daughter actually took over it and is planting her own veggies and flowers in there this year, which is good. And then on this side, we've got the columbine that again is taking over. Certain plants just really like it here. And then I moved the soil here because we are extending the vegetable garden. You can see the fence we're working on back there. So instead of this white fence being the end of the garden, it'll be that other fence back there, which I have more raspberries planted on that side. My hope was to plant them on that side to kind of keep them away from the other veggies. But I don't think I'll ever get rid of them in this area, which is fine. Like I said, we love raspberries, so we'll make it work. But anyway, this will be a pathway coming through here that will lead to the raspberry bed there. Okay, so we've got some borage here that reseeds from year to year, cilantro mixed in with dill, and some weeds, some alyssum that kind of reseeded from last year, more dill that sort of took over. It's a bit of a mess this year, honestly. Just so tired and so busy. This is the best as it's going to get so far. But I do have lettuce and some squash mixed in around the place. And then I've got 2 beds of ranunculus here that are doing well. They started blooming about a week ago. I've been making bouquets for about a week now. But these aren't even doing as good as they normally do either. It has been unseasonably warm, so I'm hoping I don't lose them because it is going to cool down in about a week. And then hopefully I'll get some more blooms out of them. But yeah, experience always changes from year to year, I guess. And then back here, we've got tomatoes and peppers in here mixed with some basil. This is the dark opal basil. This is Chinese lantern. Again, I cannot get rid of it. Warning, if you plant it, you will never get rid of it. It is a really, really beautiful fall interest for bouquets, but this bed is just dedicated to it coming back every single year. And then this is soapwort, which I had in here and then I transplanted out, but it's coming back as well, which is totally fine. Yeah, a mix of tomatoes in here with some basil. We'll see what we get out of here. And then back here we've got carrots that sort of reseeded themselves. Have to weed that through. Egyptian walking onion, which is more of a novelty onion. I don't actually eat it that much, but it's kind of nice to have it here, always multiplying. And then some more squash in here. I did plant corn. We'll see if anything comes up. There's not a lot of sprouts here, but if anything else, we'll get some squash and pumpkins back here. So that's it for the veggie garden. A bit of a mess, but I guess it's an indicator of how I feel. Life has just been so busy lately. You cannot do everything well. Okay, so moving from this bed in front of the vegetable garden, we've got a trail here that's weedy, got to fix that. And then this bed here that I call the Woodland garden. So we've got Artemisia that every year I think I want to rip it out because it just looks so weedy. But I have yet to do so. There's a ladybug on there, probably eating the aphids. Aphids have been pretty bad this year. And then this is mostly a mix of peonies. You can see the white peonies are starting to bloom here. I did plunk in some hellebores back here as well. This is mostly a shade bed. The front of the bed gets a little bit more sun. So we've got the white perennial scabiosa. Beautiful flower to rely on for bouquets. And then a speedwell that's just about to bloom. A lamium. This is, I want to say, echinops, the blue globe thistle. It looks so weedy, but once it blooms, it's just spectacular. And a variegated iris that's almost done, it's blooming. These are plum trees here. There's 2 of them here, and they look very scraggly. I bet it's because they don't get enough sun, but the plums are just such a delicious plum. I have a difficult time getting rid of the trees, so we will keep them until I can find a replacement maybe. And then more lamium down here. I have it sort of tucked in the front of the bed just as a continual interest. And then there's one of the white peony. There's one of the white peonies blooming. I believe here's a closer one. That's another purple salvia, different type. And this is what the peony looks like. I think it's a balm peony, if I'm researching it right. It's better than a double. It's just so puffy, and I guess that's why they get the balm name, because they just are like an explosion of ruffles. These were actually just a basic peony I got from the wholesaler. I got 25 white, 25 pink, 25 red, and waited a few years to cut off of them. And now that they opened, I'm just so thrilled. I think they're just a beautiful, beautiful peony. And then I've got the snowbell feverfew that's about to bloom here. That's a nice one. In this back bed, I've got pulmonaria and Brunnera and a stilby and some ferns, just a mix of different things, but I really need to mulch this area because it gets weedy very, very fast. And then we've got some Shasta daisies here and echinacea and another bush clematis and lamium, all under our cherry tree. And this is the pond garden. This area is already a struggle to plant in because the sun just bakes on this hillside. I've added some good compost, but it's just lacking nutrition for sure. And then to make matters worse, our irrigation had an issue as well. So this area is just a little bit further behind and not doing super great, but we will walk around and see what's going on here. I did add some ajuga to soften the sides here because I just thought that looked really nice there. My pond plants are sort of taking over in a good way. I picked up most of them on Marketplace last year, so I'm really happy to see them all coming back. But I didn't do a pond clean out because we had so many tadpoles, frog tadpoles, that I didn't want to disturb them. So we do have some algae there. So once the frog tadpoles have been evicted, or rather when they move on, maybe I'll do a good clean because we are getting some algae in there. But so far, I did replace the pond pump and it is doing a little bit better, but time will tell. I'm new to the whole pond thing. Yeah, and then on this hillside, we've got a few different things. The front of the bed always does better, I think because I brought in a lot more soil. So we've got some Shasta daisies, a salvia, lime green, smoke bush, and a barberry. Those all are doing great, but the hillside is just so hard to grow on. It's been my challenge this year to make it look beautiful, and so far I failed. But that's okay. The irrigation was against me this year as well, so we will see what this bed does. Worst comes to worst, I'll just keep replanting it and adding more compost, and over time it's got to get better, right? So that is most of the yard. I think we just have the beds around the house to look at. Okay, I added a few things to this bed in the spring because it was looking a little bit empty. And I'm so glad I did because now it is just so full and lush. You can see the lemony lime elderberry is starting to put on some growth. My goal is that it hides the meter. Actually, I think our meters are going away and we're getting sort of the, I don't know, Bluetooth meters or whatever they're called. So hopefully we won't even have to have that there because it's just such an eyesore. But otherwise the elderberry will cover that, I think. Okay, so we've got some Solomon seal in here that have its blooms that are faded. Hellebore, Bergenia, a stilby that's about to bloom, heuchera. Just really, really loving the colors and contrast in this bed. I've said this previously, and Van Dusen in Vancouver, they've got a black and gold bed, or not bed, rather a whole garden, and it just was my inspiration for this. Because you can see the colors together are just so beautiful. I just wanted a bed like that. So there we go. We've got some more fern back there, a clematis that is not yet blooming, but I see some buds. That's exciting. The Susan Saucer magnolia has finished its blooms. The lamium is taking over, but not in a too much of a bully way. The azalea is done blooming. I could pull off these blooms if I had some time. And then we've got our heuchera over here. So this heuchera didn't come back as nice. So I am wanting to fill in some of these spaces. I did see a burgundy astilbe that I think would be a nice mix as well. Or maybe the Japanese painted fern, because I think that would be a nice contrast with the ferns we already have. So yeah, definitely want to plug in even some more spaces on this bed, because it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. It is a shade bed, but the sun that it does get is the intense afternoon sun. So it is a bit of a trickier spot to plant, especially with the Allen block walls. They absorb a lot of heat, so I have had some plants fry in this area because they're shade plants, but that intense afternoon heat has been tricky to kind of find the right plant. But so far we're doing good. Okay, moving on to the front of the house, we've got a columnar black lace elderberry that's going to bloom. It's kind of trying to compete with this bleeding heart. I did cut it back a bit because I wanted to make sure that this was going to do all right. And then we've got some allium. The bleeding hearts are almost done, and then they will leave some more space for other things to come out, like this pulmonaria that's being hidden. What else do we have in here? We've got lady's mantle, a favorite of mine for shade, Shasta daisies and a fern, more Solomon seal back here, curious puppies in the window. Hi guys. And we have a rhododendron that actually did bloom this year. It was so beautiful. It's a bit of a tricky plant for our pH, but I'm not giving up. And then I added this, oh, the tag is still there. And then I added this sphere boxwood because I just wanted some vertical height. My goal was to put this rhododendron here, but I lost one because they're just a little bit tricky in our area, like I said. But I think this boxwood will add some good vertical structure to the bed. More Solomon seal and hellebore, another pulmonaria there. All right, I think the only area we didn't do was the secret garden, so we can head over there next. I'm not sure if I showed this area yet, so just in front of this, or just behind the new garden, we've got this here. And these are Heliopsis and Nepeta, and I really like the color together. I think that's really pretty. This blooms quite vibrant, a more orangey red, which might not look that great with that, but we will see. But so far, the foliage just looks really, really nice together. And then I did add a white climbing rose, that's City of York, here, because I'm not sure if I want a white rose or a pink rose. And then we've got Baptisia back here, goat's beard, and just a different mix of perennials in there. But yeah, let's take a look in the secret garden and I'll show you what's put on some growth. So I have nothing planted in this area yet. Actually, it's quite weedy. I've got to take over that. These shrubs I put in a few years ago, but everything else is mostly planted. So as far as blooms go, we don't have a lot blooming in this area, but I will show you just how it's sort of changed. Stairs are a little bit softer now with the Nepeta filling in around the corners. Really happy with that. We did add irrigation the other day. My father-in-law came over to help me with that. So these are all on little misters, which is going to help a lot instead of watering it myself. Still have to work on the pathway here. Well, that wraps up our little walk around and chit chat. I hope you are doing well. Life has been crazy, but I just really wanted to get into the garden and kind of show you some of the updates of what's going on in here. Have a great day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.